me free tickets. Why? What did I do to get it? Didn't win any raffle. I'm going to tell you how I organized the Jewish parole officers against anti-Semitism on the job. As a parole officer, put up with a lot of stuff that I couldn't take anymore. I'm going to tell you how one simple reading of a newspaper changed my whole life, and that of my sons. I was sitting at home reading a newspaper like I do every day, and I read this article. It says that every year around Halloween, the hoodlums come into the Jewish cemeteries, they knock the stones over, they put graffiti on stones, and they leave the garbage. And every year before this happens, they would call the police department. Well, that's what respectable Jews do. They call the police department and say, can you have some officers checking and make sure this doesn't happen again? And like someone once said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again with the same results, which is what happens. The police say, we don't have the manpower and we can't do it. Halloween's a busy night for us and they can't do anything about it. So what happens? This particular night, when the hoodlums showed up, they found 50 men with bats inside the cemetery and a rabbi. And the rabbi says to them, you can walk in, but you won't walk out. And he said at the end of the article, he's starting a new organization, and it gives a time and place where it's going to meet and what they're going to do. I said to my wife, this looks like my kind of rabbi, and I'm going there to that meeting. I went there. He started the Jewish Defense League. I was the chairman, along with Mal Leibowitz, and I ran the Jewish Defense League in Brooklyn. So many incidents occurred that I could barely mention all of them. I would even go back a step and say, when I was in the Army, I had my first encounter. Some guy in the barracks was constantly making anti-Semitic remarks to me. Even though there were two other Jews, he picked on me. He thought I was an easy mark. I went over to him once, I said, let's go outside and discuss this privately. He said, ha ha ha, I'm only kidding, forget about it. Never opened his mouth again. That was an early learning for me. These guys are not looking for fights, they're looking for victims. When they know that they may get hurt, they think twice about it. This is the thing that I took with me from the years of actions in the JDL, many series, never threw a punch, never had a fight. Of course, they always knew we don't come to carry signs, we don't come to hand out leaflets, we don't make speeches, we just carry bats. And no balls, just bats. After that, we go all kinds of activities with the JDL. I could be here for time till lunch, telling the things we were involved in. One time I'm laying in bed, air-conditioned bedroom, watching the ball game, and I get a telephone call. Larry, you got to get down to Williamsburg right away. There's going to be a pogrom. What? And Williamsburg, a pogrom? What are you talking about? He said, the same, very similar incident happened twice. Once it happened in Williamsburg, and another time it happened in Crown Heights. A Hasidic truck driver accidentally ran over a black child. It was an accident. He wasn't charged with anything, and they started handing out leaflets that the Jews are killing our children. And the police were called. The police came. What did they do? They arrested the JDL boys, and they left. I called my friend. We both were very important to the JDL for one simple reason. We were probably the only ones who were legally armed. We can carry guns anywhere in the city, legally. So we get down there, we're talking to them. I'll never forget, one of the Hasidim had a bloody handkerchief around his hand. He was hitting the hand with a rock. And as we're talking, the whole group of them shoot into the shul, into the nearby Stiebel. This was Bedford Avenue, right by the overpass, if you know Brooklyn. zoomed into like a flash. They all ran it. I turned around, huh? The mob coming towards us. So many of them that they couldn't get a car through. They were coming, they were a couple of blocks away. I screamed at the Hasidim. I said, break up the tables and chairs, get a bottle, we're gonna fight. And they came out. Much of my happiness, they came out. And know what happened? Nothing. When they saw us standing there waiting for them, stopped, turned around, and left. You're looking for victims, not for a fight. I found this time after time after time. The most well-known of these incidents occurred years later. And some of you may know the name Skokie. Most of you guys weren't even born. That's about 40 years ago. What happened was a group of Nazis, Makshimo, said they were going to march through the Jewish suburb of Chicago called Skokie. And so not only was there a lot of Jews living there, but some of them were Holocaust survivors. And they said, hell no, we said, you're not going to march through here. The JDL rented a bus, filled it up with men to go out there, and believe me, we're not carrying signs. I said to myself, well, go round trip by a bus. I decided I'm going to go with the Jewish war veterans because they went by plane. I thought it'd be a lot easier for me not have to go back and forth to Chicago by bus. So I had a reservation. I was going to go to them. The word came that they changed their mind when they knew we were coming. They decided to march through a Gentile neighborhood and stay away from the Jews. Listen to this part. This is the best part of that part story. An enterprising reporter found the leader of the Nazis, Makshimo. His name was Cullen, C-U-L-L-E-N. He did some reporting, some investigations, and when he found out what Cullen was not his name, his real name was Cohen. He was a Jew. When that came out in the papers, and about what he really was, he was so humiliated he committed suicide. No loss. That was one of the most famous incidents. I didn't get to go there because they changed their mind before I even got on the plane. Stepping forward, on my job as a parole officer in New York, there was always a little subtle anti-Semitism, no name calling or anything. But they treated us differently than others. A good friend of mine, Al Schwartz, had a heart attack. He stayed off the job for a couple of months. After that, the doctor said he could go back to work, and they hesitated. Well, they didn't want to take him back. At the same time, there was an Irish guy, Jim Carrey, who was literally was so weak and sick that he had to hold on to the wall when he walked. He, not only did they keep him on the job, but they even let him have a cot in his office so he could take it easy and take a rest, which was not bad. He was a nice man. Everybody liked him. But why not Al Schwartz also? He was also a nice man. Different standards for the same thing. Didn't like it. Nothing they could do about it because I was a nobody, just another face in the crowd. And I learned my lesson in other ways also, because the Division of Parole bought a monastery in Albany, and they saw a huge building, and they said, we each sleep and train in that building, in this monastery. Each sleep and train in that same building. So I sent a memo to Albany. I said, I can't eat there. I'm not going to eat in the monastery. By the way, it was all free of food, everything. I said, I'm not going to eat there. I can't eat there. No answer. Well, maybe it got lost, the memo going to Albany. Maybe they lost it by mistake. So I said, the second memo, no answer. Now I know they didn't lose it, they're just ignoring me. Then I wrote a third memo, and this time I said, I'm not going on such and such a date because I'm a observant Jew, and I don't eat that food, and I'm not going to starve for a week. Now I get a phone call from Albany, Larry, you can go out and eat wherever you want, you'll get the time off, and you can put the meals on your expense account. All the Jewish guys did the same thing, although half of them weren't even kosher. But they wanted a break, which I did not like, because they were using their religion as an excuse to get an advantage. Thank God they never got caught, and I kept my mouth shut. But that was not the end yet. The worst was yet to come. One day, one of the female bosses went into the supply room. There was a Jewish clerk working there, and for some reason she got angry with him, and she said, Hitler didn't kill enough of you Jews. That was the breaking point, no more. Because who am I going to go to? I have nobody to go. I'm just a regular guy there. I have no authority, no power. They told her to apologize. She apologized, forget about it. You can be damn sure that the other bosses wouldn't have treated other groups that same way. So I said, this is not going to happen again. We're not going to put up with this crap anymore. I said, where can I go? Who can I do? We had at that time, and they still have it, the National Showman Society. This is not the knockoff at Borough Park, you know, what they call the Showman. This is the real Showman, where they had chapters of police department, fire department, correction department, probation. Each had their own chapter. We in parole had nothing. I called Joe Itzko, who was a sergeant in the police department in Philadelphia, and he ran the national organization. And I told him what the story was. He was a good guy. He sent me 2 Jewish cops from New York, and they helped me get organized. And we formed we call ourselves the Barzel Society. Those of you who speak Hebrew know Barzel means iron, means strength. So we were the Barzel chapter of the National Showman Society. Huge difference after we got organized. Every year they had Christmas parties, we had a Hanukkah party. And I told a rabbi friend, I said, you could bring your grandchildren to our Hanukkah party and you would not be embarrassed. Because when the Gentiles had their Christmas party, it's drunkenness, grabbing the women, all kinds of rowdy behavior. It's so bad that the agency told them they can't have it here anymore. Next year, you want a Christmas party, go someplace else and have it, not on our premises. But they never told that to me. We had no liquor. We had a guest speaker, or a menorah on the table, and I love to bring in tough Jews. That's my. You can have scholars. My people are the tough Jews that I admire the most. I had Rabbi Kahana, I had Dov Heiken, I had Russian Jewish prize fighter. That was the toughest guys I could find. And the one that impressed me the most, I don't know whether you know this name or not, a hero of the Holocaust, Tuvia Bielski. His son came. I only spoken to him on the phone, I never saw him before. When he walked into the office, Boyak Krell, a big guy, no mess with big kind of guy. He and his family saved thousands of Jews during the Holocaust, took them into the forest, protected them, built them homes in the ground so it should be warm in the winter, in the cold winter. And when I heard that they were in Brooklyn, I called his son, and he came and he spoke. We have quite a few people like that through the years. And Rabbi Kahana, of course.
You know, Larry, you say tough Jews. Your wife was a tough Jew.
I didn't get to her yet.
Yeah, put her in there as a tough Jew.
I'm gonna
because
get to
that
that.
is a woman who fought for her her dignity,
Right.
every single moment. And the only reason you were able to do the things you did was because she supported
You're making
you.
my speech.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that.
I'm sorry, but it's true.
That's what I was going to say. She jumped the gun. I was going to tell you that everything I did was a direct result of my wife taking care of my sons.
Amen.
In those days, there was no cell phones. There was no cell phones. And there's no way she could reach me if she needed me. And she never complained. Never complained. There was my son and his brother, both here. There were children at that time, and there's nothing that we could do about it. If she needed me. I want to tell you also why I got the free ticket from El. We had to keep it quiet for a long time because if the agency had found out there was enough anti-Semitism under the current, if they had known what we were doing, they would have said no. This was a terrible time during the Yom Kippur War in '73. Israel was in extreme danger. They were being pushed back in the north from Syria, in the south from Egypt, and they had lost a lot of men, a lot of material, planes, tanks, and the situation was very bad. So a lot of their security people had to go back and fight. They had to go back and join their units and fight. And they called me up along with the other leaders of the various Shalom chapters and told us a story. They said, "Can you help us? We needed Jews with guns who were legally armed to act as guardians of the El Al airport, Kennedy Airport, and their crew. They were afraid there might be a terrorist attack and that there would be no response, no one to defend the airline. Typically, we would, let me step back. I told them all the guys who volunteered, I got 6 of my best guys to volunteer, all tough parole officers. I said, we cannot make this public because if the government finds out we're doing this, or the parole finds out we're doing this, they'll say no. And if we do it anyway, chances are we'd all be fired. So we had to keep it quiet. Nobody knew at the time what we were doing. The best thing is that my job, it was easy to walk out of the office. Because there's always a reason to leave. A guy gets locked up, you gotta find out what happened. A guy is working, is he really on the job? Another guy is he sleeping where he's supposed to be? You can always get up and, without asking or telling anybody, and leave. I get a phone call, we got a plane leaving at 3 o'clock. Can you help us? Yes, I said, I'll be there. I would get to the Lexington Hotel in Manhattan, where the crew stayed. I would wait with the bus outside. I would stand there watching them get up and leave into the bus, get on the bus with them, go to the airport. The airport was different in those days. It was like a strip mall. There was a place here for French Airlines, Italian Airlines, Greek, who knows, all along the line. Each one had a separate building, like the mall with different stores. So we would all go inside there, and we would sit down there and watch the crew get on, off the plane, off the bus, and go in there. Then I would mix with the passengers. If I saw a suitcase on nobody next to it, I would tell them they were making an announcement. We're only afraid there might someone leave a bomb and walk out. So we would make an announcement, if you don't come and get that suitcase, we're throwing it out. I would check the hallways, make sure there's nothing packages there. And when the passengers left, I would be at the departure gate, and all the passengers were on the plane. El would put me in a taxi and send me home. And like I said a minute ago, and my daughter-in-law just told you, my wife had no way of reaching me, no cell phones. So she took care of my boys, never once complained. And a few weeks before she was Dickter, she told me that I was her hero. Can you imagine how that made me feel? I'm breaking up now just thinking about it. She was my hero. Never once did she complain. Never once said, "Oh, stay home with the children while you're running around helping us." Never said that. She did the best she could. She took care of everything, and never once complained. Never made a nasty comment. Never yelled. Never said nothing. She just. And I'll tell you another story. I keep forgetting these things. I once got a letter saying that you're going to die from the job in the office. Signed Zambian Liberation Army. And I think, wow, some black guy that I work with wants to kill me. I'm wondering what it is. I had a friend and worked in what we call the Bureau of Special Services, which is actually the Detective Bureau of the parole. And I had a friend working there. I showed him the envelope. And on the envelope is the return address. Can you imagine? They threatened to kill me, and there's a return address, handwritten, with an apartment number, no less. So this, I'll never forget, this happened on Memorial Day weekend. On a Friday, I brought it down to show this guy the letter, and he says, I will investigate it, and I'll let you know what happened. It was a Memorial Day weekend. I didn't find out till Tuesday what he found out. He knocks on the door. The secretary, one of the secretaries answers the door. A blonde shiksa, white. And I had to explain to my wife what this was all about. Thank God she believed me. I had nothing to do with this woman. To this day, I don't even know her name. As soon as they found out who it was, they fired her. And she was a little bit of a mischievous to begin with, because when she'd gone out to lunch, she would take Scotch tape and wrap it around her telephone, around and around and around, so that nobody could use her phone when she was down there, not in the office. Another story I forgot to tell you. I told you we used to have these great breakfasts from the Sherman Society, national. Over 1,000 cops from all over the country, detectives. And one time we had the great speaker, Simon Wiesenthal. The name you should all know. The #1 Nazi hunter in the country. Simon Wiesenthal was the guest speaker. And Lou Weiser, a retired lieutenant in the police department, ran the breakfast. So he comes over to me and says, "Larry, I want you to take him, after he finishes speaking, take him down to his car and make sure nobody bothers him." Me? Of course, I was bigger and tougher than I am now. I've shrunk about 7 inches since that time. That's true. And he says, "I want you to take him down and make sure nobody bothers him." That was a big thing. I'm thinking, what, me? There's over 1,000 Jewish cops and detectives, all tough guys. And he asked me to do it. I took him down, and I didn't say one word to him. You know why? I was looking around all the time. From the time he left the ballroom, till the time he got into the elevator, until the time I got him into his car. Because I had to make sure that nobody was following us. Another famous Jewish guy, the Jewish writer who wrote Holocaust, what was his name, Adam?
Yours?
What? Jewish writer.
Elie Wiesel?
Elie Wiesel. He's my memory. Elie Wiesel got beaten up in an elevator by anti-Semites who knew him as a Jewish writer. And here I am with the number one Nazi hunter in the world. And I got to make sure that nobody touches it. So I'm looking around, checking everything, make sure my gun is easily available. And I got him into the car. That's when I spoke to him, said, wish him a good trip and everything else. He should be well and continue his great work. So that's what's another thing. It really amazed me. Because after all, I'm not a huge guy. And he asked me to take him to his car. And prior to this, another thing I forgot to tell you. We always had a meeting before the Sherman breakfast. We decided what we're going to do and who's to be the guest speaker, etc. And one guy raises his hand and says, why does it have to be kosher? It's only dairy. And we got to pay a mishkiach. And we got to do this and that. It costs us extra money. It's only a breakfast. Let's just make a regular breakfast and forget about the extra cost. And I raised my hand, and I got up and then spoke. I said, extra cost? This is a Jewish thing. You have to have pride and self-respect. Who gives a damn for Jews if you don't care for yourself? When we make a meal, every Jew should feel comfortable in here. Nobody should have to go to the kitchen and look at labels. They know we're there, and it's kosher, and everybody is welcome. They had a vote, and I won the vote. And so far as I know, they were kosher thereafter. And there was a lot of people there, not all Jews. We had politicians, and this guy and that guy, and not even the non-Jewish groups like the Irish or the Italians. They would take a table as a sign of respect, and maybe 10 Irish cops or 10 Italian detectives, whatever. They would be there, so it was a lot of people. We filled the ballroom of the hotel. Today you couldn't fill this room maybe, because all the grandchildren of those cops are now dentists and accountants. So, to put it simply, I had a very